Some years ago, I was traveling in Western England, and I found myself in a little village called Fairford. And I'm crawling around on my hands and knees in this restricted part of the building. And I have in one hand the tool that more than any other has aided me thus far in my work as a medieval art historian, a flashlight. You see, I work on the parts of medieval buildings that are hard to see. I work on furniture, in particular, chairs known as misericords or mercy seats. And these fold up and down, much like modern theater chairs, and they have often elaborate carvings on the undersides. And interestingly, these carvings don't really ever match our modern expectations of what kind of art is appropriate for a medieval church. For instance, this particular day, I'm in Fairford and I encounter an image that at first glance appears to depict a hunter or some sort of man squatting with a pair of dogs, but I'm a very diligent art historian, and so I decide to lay down on my back to get right underneath the image, and I shine my flashlight on it from below, and I realize that it's not merely an image of a man squatting. This is a figure in the act of defecating. He is pantsless, with exposed nether regions, articulated in painstaking detail, and you could take my word for it. And excrement issues forth in a neat little line. Naturally, I wanted to share what I had discovered. So I approached one of the parish employees, an older woman, and I described to her the nature of the scene. And her reaction was so great. She was totally titillated. She practically pulled me across the building and demanded that I show her the image in question. After all, this is someone who'd worked in this building for years, who'd passed by this object countless times, but who'd never been kind of let into the know. You know, she'd never gotten down to look at it from beneath. In any case, we approached a second parish employee to discuss this, and I was about to learn that I had not, in fact, made a totally unique discovery. This second employee, another older woman, said, "I know, of course I know, but I don't like to go around bragging about it." And she said, "It's not seemly, this kind of thing." And to me, as an art historian, these two reactions, one excited, the other kind of disgusted or dismayed, these have come to represent the general range of interpretive responses I can expect when describing such art to would-be viewers in the modern world. And these reactions seem different, but in reality, they're both part of the same modern tendency, which is to see this kind of art as a dirty little secret. And neither really gets us to the way that the originally intended audience of monks and priests would have thought about such images. You see, my job as an art historian is to move beyond these modern interpretations, to perform art history via what I call a bottom-up methodology. And this means more than just getting underneath an image like this and looking at it from below. It's about posturing myself as a cultural archaeologist, determined to dig up a broader array of interpretive responses. For instance, we might consider that medieval monks and priests were steeped in a way of thinking that ultimately moved beyond the surface level of things, what we might call an exegetical interpretive formula. It's what helped them read scripture, to look beyond the sort of surface level meanings of religious texts. We might also consider that monks and priests had to be at least functionally literate in Latin. And there's some revealing evidence here. The Latin term, for instance, expellare, means both to expel, as in sin from the soul, but also to defecate, literally. And it helps us to reapproach an image like the Fairford hunter, because we can come to see that this ultimately operates like something of a visual pun or puzzle. It's an image that demonstrates a concretized commonplace, a relationship in the medieval imagination that suggests an interpretation of sin as excrement. Now, of course, to come to this kind of reading in the modern world is complex, because we have our first interpretation, our first encounter with the image to overcome, that sense of surprise, of shock, excitement, or dismay. What I'm saying is that to see this image the way it was meant to be seen, we have to be able to try to move beyond this. And I might at this point note that the Fairford hunter is by no means unique. We find, in fact, scores of these scatological or excrement-related images in the fabric of churches in England as well as across Europe. Additionally, we see images that display nudity that are oftentimes sexually suggestive in these contexts as well. And beyond this, it's not even just churches. Medieval manuscripts, religious manuscripts like psalters or collections of psalms have these kinds of seemingly profane pictures in the margins of sacred texts. It's a veritable phenomenon of sacred-profane juxtaposition. And while in the modern world this is kind of crazy, a little bit zany or bizarre, unexpected, what I would say is that we should celebrate these kinds of images, right? I wonder, what would it be like if an image like the Fairford hunter and others like it, if this wasn't just a dirty secret that we're all too apt to miss unless we're brought into the know? Could knowledge of these kinds of objects, the study of these kinds of images, could this have the potential to inform modern debates about what actually constitutes high art, right? What is the nature of blasphemy? How do we define profanity, right, or profane images? And really, what's the value of censorship? Because, and contrary to popular belief, the thinking of people in the pre-modern world was in many ways less categorical than our thinking is today. Concepts like sacred and secular, or sacred and profane even, were not as mutually exclusive as they so often seem to us. Thank you.